Inviting me on today. We appreciate it. I'm John Nolan. I'm the Regional Asset Data Analysis Manager in Network Rail, Wales and Western Region. As part of what I look after, as part of my the work we do is asset data, cybersecurity, um, data quality and assurance, and documents records management, BIM, information management, and geospatial. So what I'm here to talk about today is our view in our region, how we're going to look at strategy and innovation in the digital built environment. This is the slide that I'm showing the new infrastructure directors. So Network Rail is our region being developed in a certain way. And I was explaining to Gary earlier on and going around to the different delivery units, explaining what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve as part of this. So hopefully you get a bit of insight from it. So I'm going to talk about the strategy we have, brief overview. But basically, as you can see, we're on a journey, and the key theme behind it, the key factor behind it is geospatial. That's the key message behind this. It's what we're doing, a transformation into a geospatial business. It's not taking away track IDs, it's not taking away ELR miles, it's not taking away linear data. That's fundamental, and that's how the rail is built. But this journey is kind of showing transition. So I'm going to start talking about geospatial problem, 3D, 4D, something we call 3.5D, 4D a bit of that as well, and then I'm going to finish talking about data quality framework and what we're trying to achieve by that as well. So we have a strategy, a data information strategy. It's in place since 2024. Just my past as well. I was part of the CAD BIM working on GWEP since 2012, came all the way through, then program manager for BIM and principal design engineer for BIM in Wales and Western, because Network Rail is getting its act together in information management and that workspace, and I've moved into asset data. So what I'm doing is the data information strategy is bringing all that together, the BIM requirements, the CAD, the survey, the data, the cyber, everything together into one kind of view with that strategy. We had got it validated by Health and Safety Data Integration, so our Health and Safety team validated it. As part of this is our own upskill, so we're attracting new talent, mature talent. So we've brought in geospatial expertise, we've brought in a BIM manager. Ollie's in the room here today, and an awful lot of the work you'll see later on is stuff that Ollie's working on as well. We brought in cybersecurity people, and we're continuing to upscale our people to become geospatial and overarching data people as part of that as well. And impact on that is data and technology as well. And at the end of the day, we want to be smart on what we're doing. And the key message from this is, if we get our data sorted out, and I'm not going to go through the triangle, but that's the message I'm saying to delivery units and the people in the business. Let's get our data sorted out. Let's get our quality sorted out, everything we do. And then we can then work on the top echelon and decide where our priorities are on the railway and what we're going to do in the future. This is Highways England, and this is going to give context to where we're going. Network Rail is doing this kind of data value itself, but £1 invested in Highways England produces £2.7 economic value. For every £2 of physical asset, you got £1 of asset data. So what that translates to is the physical infrastructure of highways is 115 billion, but the economic value of the data is 60 billion. That's amazing. And they got a company in to do it. They went through the whole thing. So their data this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to the message to the routes and the regions as a business. Data is important. We're not in control of data. And people are always talking about AI and using different technologies and part of that. If the data is wrong, AI is wrong. So I say to people when they have put their hands up, what about AI? Let's get the data sorted out first of all, and then go back to that pyramid about where we are. Just this is an example of what Highways England have put the value on their data have, and so it kind of speaks for itself. So what's our transformation? What's happening? Asset data and information transformation. We are transforming. Where the evolution has gone from paper-based information, and we have a legacy railway as well. So an awful lot of documents go back to Brunel, especially Severn Tunnel and things like that, and old architectural drawings and design drawings. And we're moving into the digital space, and we worked on projects and getting project information sorted out. We have an awful lot of systems. Network has 110 systems around asset data at the moment, and more coming on board. But how do we manage this? How do we bring it all together? So we are producing this digital twin for asset management, maintenance, and projects. I was on a call today, and someone talks about digital twin means these different things. To me, it's the physical railway. It's for asset management information, maintenance information, and project information being distributed, being visible in that world, in an environment. So it's talking about the future is going to be IoT, looking at project information, bringing it together with cybersecurity and things like that as well. Um, yes, that's that. So why geospatial? Okay. Um, People on the route know where the assets are. If you walk down the railway and you walk the railway every day, you know where the assets are. I don't know where the assets are. I can look at an aerial survey in Google Maps. It doesn't tell me the name of the asset. It doesn't tell me if it's up on the up main or the down main. Where's the access points in relation to this? So what we're doing is we're focusing on where our assets are. We're using GIS as the backbone. We have different systems in the business, and we've technology that worked that before. But this is what we're working on about capturing, storing, analyzing, and visualizing that information. And how do we do it? In storage, especially in analysis, all these systems, how do we bring it all together and how do we understand where everything works? Like I said, it won't replace ELR or miles, and that's going nowhere. Track diagrams are still in use to be used for the next 20 years. What we're trying to do is bring some geospatial coordination into that. So here's kind of like the problem statement. Overhead line assets in our systems. It's on an ELR or miles, and it shows it right down the middle of the track. That's where, and even where that star is it 50 yards out? Is it 100 yards out? That's what we're trying to work on. So in reality, that OLE structure is either side of the railway. It's a portal, for example, and we're trying to understand where that is and where it is, so we can make decisions based on that. We want to understand where assets are, so in the future, if people leave the business, they'll be able to locate them as well. But if we understand, if we visualize geospatially where we are, then we're going to look at performance, predictability, and we can look at decisions as well based on that. So as part of that, this problem statement that we had, I think I'll come up in a second on the screen. Yeah, Uffington Road Bridge. So I put these slides together for the heads of asset management a couple of months ago, and basically I was on the train coming down. I know Uffington Road Bridge from a long time ago. The top is the example of some of the assets that are in that location, and then underneath the image is some of the data sets, and that's just like just minor amount of data sets that are in there. You wouldn't fill the slide with that. So what we're trying to do is understand what information is in this location and across the route. How do we visualize it, and how can we link to the system that's there, or else if we don't link for the system, how do we understand where it's located on that? So that's the big issue that's there. So what we're doing is we're working on it's called GRL, Geospatial Reliable Asset Information Location. It's our own term we thought of ourselves. It's our own logo we thought of ourselves. But you know yourself, you have to have a catchy name for something you're trying to work on, and that's what goes around the business. And it is being used quite a bit actually at the moment. So it's all about people understanding the data and information that's available for them as well. So this is kind of like the mechanics behind it. So what we're trying to do is we're visualizing the physical railway in the digital world. We have 2D information, we have 3D information, we have reality information, that's point cloud photographs. Even last week, Ollie is part of the team. He's talking to some of the maintenance guys about doing 3D scans of the access points, so they can understand how it works, things like that, and that's part of that reality data. What we're trying to do with this is talk to asset management and maintenance and projects that we're capturing the requirements. So asset management is fair enough. I'm in that world. I can understand the requirements that is in that and the linkage that's in there. National Records Group, where's the health and safety file? Where's the as-bills for all those shiny overhead line structures that are around the route? And how do you get access to them? From a maintenance point of view, they got a lot of systems that they use. They got a lot of maintenance scheduled tasks, work orders. How do we visualize the information they want? And not only that though, the information from their SharePoint sites. How do we even get that feed in? And that's part of the requirements we're capturing with them. And then of course there's the project data, the project information. Is that health and safety files again? It's the project information. If a survey was done, where's the surveys that were done, where are located? So we're working on that at the moment to have a visualization of surveys that were done in the past. Even if they're done 10 years ago, it doesn't matter. For Maidenhead Station, when they were working on the station on platform 1, a 2016 survey of the embankment was used as part of that. That's fantastic. Keeps people safe. People go out on site. People don't need to go out on site, and using that data again and again as part of that. So the plan is that we have a 3D virtual railway, a cloud-based GIS platform, which is the key to bringing it all together. So the geospatial platform is the key for the virtual railway, and that enables people to visualize the data they want to see as part of that. So what does it look like? So this is a view, the geospatial view. What we're looking at access points, level crossings, and just on that as well, by the way, our view in our region is we own the geospatial data. So any work you do in our region that feeds that's fair enough. But anyone who wants access to this geospatial data has to be a feed from this. And that's from the business wanting that information themselves for their need to external parties as well. Need to get a feed into this. But this is going to be the geospatial database that links assets and different information together as part of that. So we're working on access points and we're creating and working with the access planning team on that. Level crossings platforms, I won't go through it really, but you can see on the map that all those clusters, that's health and safety files from National Records Group. So you zoom in, it gets less and less and less dynamic, and you actually see as-builts for bridges and health and safety files for different assets. All the overhead line has the as-built and the cross sections linked to it as well as other information I'll go through in a minute. Some of the work we're doing here, we are building an ecological database. That's going to be a back end to this. So we are working with the ecological teams in Wales and Western, and we're very advanced on that, capturing their requirements, and we're working with Esri to build a solution into this for external and internal use as well. That's going to really change the dynamic on ecology, because at the moment everything is all over the place and in different storage locations, and it's not really managed on that. Here's a close-up view. It'll come up to the screen in a second. There's a bit of lag. Yeah, so this is like it's an aerial survey, but on this you can see the overhead line, you can see signals, points, access points, structures. So in green is a link to Nest, a link to different, and there's carbon data in there as well, energy data, and any aerial surveys we get in as well as part of it. Drone surveys, that when they come in, we're having conversations now, they'll feed into this. So the drone survey, if it's a 2D top down or any imagery as part of that as well, can be linked to this. We're writing requirements. As part of what we're doing is we have BIM requirements and we have different ways of information delivery. But what we're going to do to tie that in to deliver this as well is digital delivery requirements, saying exactly what we need to feed this, because we're moving into this digital twin world. So everything we have with BIM, everything we have with information management, everything we have with asset data, exchange of asset information, that's all feeding this as well. But we're going to work on distinctive information to help feed this, because the maintenance guys want this, and they're the ones, if we're not feeding it, it's not going to work, and we're asking them to drive that from root requirements as well, and they'll drive that moving forward. And asset management. Part of it as well is that we're from the requirements is linking up to parent-child relationships with Ellipse. So any work orders, maintenance schedule has the history behind that as well. So we've done an awful lot of work behind that. We're connecting into Ellipse. So it'll be a live feed from Ellipse in here. And if you click on an asset, it'll tell you, this is my work order. This is work outstanding. And then as we move forward, we're talking with some people about generative AI, that you can ask the question, how many work orders have I got outstanding this week? What's my future work orders? Or as from a managerial point of view, how many has the team got outstanding and who are they with? Things like that. So we're working on that world as well as part of that. But that's just that's based on the need to display those MSTs and work orders in the geospatial world. Because at the moment they're all in Ellipse and it's all structured data, tabulated. We want to put it in the real world and make that view as part of that. So just to go back, links to Nest, which is the structures database, link to health and safety file, link to the OLE as-builts, that's already in there. So this is an old slide. So that was the 2D world. That's based on GIS, and that's the linchpin behind everything we're trying to do. Just moving into the virtual world. Here's an old video from, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, Bristol Parkway proposed OLE design in here. Well, I just show this to show the people in Network Rail and outside the process to create the data sets we have geospatially. So we're validating all our asset data geospatially based on this information, which is a RILA train-borne survey, which is highly accurate for local geospatial, and also aerial scans. But from that, and we're very lucky that we had WEP and Crossrail and Poplar Line and Old Oak Common, they'll all feed into this as well. But basically, we're building this digital view of the railway, which has all our visible assets in there, and where possible, our underground assets as well. I'll just let it play out, but it's just showing you what we're trying to do. And the key thing for this is it's all about keeping people safe. So it'll be open to anyone in the business or externally from in the business to actually make decisions and understand from that immersive view. And I remember actually on outside they were playing some oldie switches near Maidenhead a long time ago, and they wanted to have that view and see what it looked like the design. And that's what we're trying to do. So the key message from this is if you're not already doing it, your 3D design needs to feed into this. Your 2D design is fantastic, but your 3D design needs to feed into this as well. And it's happening. It's happening in enhancements. We're trying to get that into a better state in other parts of the business. Right. Next. Okay. So what's the benefits? That's outside Paddington Station. What we're trying to do is build an environment, and it's not iTwin. I'll go through that in a minute. iTwin is kind of the foundation for it. We want people to place measurements, identify coordinates, create sections, and basically allow anyone in the business to see what's there, make decisions basically on that. Here's some old slides that were decisions that need to be made on Great Western Electrification Programme. In this example here, the model was there, the railway structure was in 3 dimensions, and they needed to move 50 functional supply units from Reading and Newbury to another part of the route. That's when there was an awful lot of to and from with assets and installation. And that took 2 hours. And the thought behind it was we have to drive to site, we have to get out of the car, we have to find the access points, we have to maybe get a possession, get a site safety, all these things, and walk that 16 miles. So it's good to have the 2 hours we're doing a virtual walkthrough. That's what we want for our people on the ground and in projects and in maintenance as well as part of that. This is an example of various services that we inherited from those projects. The reason why this slide was done at the time was there was a fire nearby, and they wanted to understand what assets were on the railway. So this is put together in that location to show what's there. But I'm putting on this slide to show what underground services should look like and what our plan is to push it out across the route as well over time. Because it's not going to stop people digging underground, but if you're aware of what's underground, you'll be able to make more informed decisions. And we learned that on electrification as well, putting in trial holes and things like that. One of the kind of big things, groundbreaking things that we did was, and Ollie played a main part in that, was Severn Tunnel. Everyone knows what it's like. Everyone knows about the access to conditions. Everyone who's been through there, it's just a dark patch for about 10 minutes. But we created a 3D virtual model of Severn Tunnel. The need was to be able to get dimensions, check what's there, do virtual walkouts. The same thing we spoke about before, but the only difference is that you're in a safe environment and you can do it any time of day. This has got an awful lot of traction, and it's being used for an awful lot of projects that are coming in. Lately, they updated the overhead line in the tunnel. The model was a key part of that, even for the animations produced for access as part of planning for that. And then there's drainage being put in, and there's other works happening. And that's why we're writing these digital requirements, is the need to provide digital information to feed this, but by default that'll permeate across the other parts of the business as well. What we've done all along with class, what we'll continue doing is signal sighting, and we do that as a team. So we do that as an asset in the asset management function, because the benefit outweighs doing it, going back to the traditional way of going out on site and keeping boots off ballast. So that's an example of what was completed there. Anytime there's a difficult signal sighting issue, the model's built in a couple of days and it's sighted the following week. So the turnaround is very quick. And in Pangbourne, there was a shine coming off a part of the network. The drivers were complaining the shine was coming off. So what Ollie did was he actually modeled in a board to block that, prevent the shine. It was signed off in 2 or 3 days, and then they went out and they put it in place. And that's fast, dynamic turnaround. That's the way you want it to be. That's what the technology is there for, is to enable those decisions. And just to go just on that as well, the premise for doing signal sighting and driver route learning The train operating companies and the freight operating companies are all part of that, and all know about that process and invested in that process as well. So where are we going on this? I guess that's part of the next piece. I put this in for a bit of fun as well. It just shows where we're going on the journey. So it's animation run through Paddington. You can see the model, you can see the station is there, and that's Ollie running around fidgety. You know what I mean? Someone's after him, I don't know who's after him. But maybe he's hungry, he's going to get something to eat. But this is where we're going with this. So we're going from the world of 2D design, 3D design, existing asset, using that information geospatially to produce something that we can walk around the railway and it's view interactively. So we're moving away from the grey design world, which is a very big need for clash detection and signal flight and all the things that's used, which is absolutely fantastic. We want that finished information in an environment like this, so people can get interested and people are getting very enthusiastic about it as well. I'll stop that there. So this is just an example of what we're doing and moving forward. So we're building up our models in iTwin as a foundation. So we've got New Palatine Cardiff is all in there, around to Newport, down to Taunton's in. The conversation I had with Western Route a few weeks ago is they're having issues with veg management. And although the 3D environment won't solve the issue of veg management, planning the works and going out will help with that. So they've asked for 5 models of signals with the requirement reading in that as well. So a virtual model that they can use for planning and working out what their issues are. And that's from a maintenance point of view. So kind of the message from that is, it is the information you're supplying and the information the business has, it is being used full life cycle now. So that whole dream about project ends and it's thrown in the bin and then it starts again and we can't find the information and we do all these things, that's all gone away. It's really full asset life cycle maintenance. And what's the pipeline? So we coined the term 3.5D. I show you that in a minute, but we want people to be more informed when they're managing possessions. Possession management, planning works, using the technology that's there, using the terms like 4-dimensional, which is time, linking that in with possession planning and system information and other information as well. So the people on the ground can plan the work successfully, understand any clashes in that environment, and then deliver it safely as well as part of that. So here's an animation showing you just a glimpse of what we're doing. And the focus is Paddington to Reading, and the Western Route Director, he wants as stated, he wants this for that area is very busy. So what we're trying to do is we're going to place people, plant, machinery. We have the virtual railway. We have that. We're building up our library of plant, building up our library of people, we're building up all that database as part of that, and we're going to have this as an executable file that anyone in Network Rail at the moment can install, and they can use it to place plans and information. And so you're moving from your plans, your schematic-based plans, which are about 5 miles long, which have outlines on them, into that 3D immersive world that allows you to put the plant and the machinery and everything inside that possession zone. And that's fantastic. And again, just to state it again, that's the information that has been provided from projects that's been recycled, that's been used for maintenance purposes, and driving that. So that's a key part of it as well. And then the 4D world comes into that as when it gets to near an advanced stage, putting the P6 plan or the PPS plan, which is totally different than P6, but bringing that together and having multiple plants moving on that. And Ollie's work, that's what he's working on now. Okay. So what's the future kind of capability? I've been talking to quite a few people in the business. Scenario-based training, that's fair enough. How do you go on site, how you operate, plant and machinery, how that works is one aspect. Disaster planning, wargaming. I'm having a conversation about Severn Tunnel. How do we war game that? If a train gets stuck, what do we do? So how can we put that in the virtual world? Trial for drain simulation is fair enough. Stakeholder engagement for a structured line, most of you guys are doing it anyway. It's part of your design process. And then timetable change scenarios, which is something we're looking at. So behind that though, and this goes back to the start, where we spoke about data and the quality of data and the price of data. It's not going to work without that information that's on screen, basically, to feed that digital twin. Because at the moment, there's nothing there. It's the information that we receive, it's the surveys, it's the designs, it's all that information. It's the paper-based information, it's the IoT feeds, the sensors, the drones, the photos, all that information is what we want to be able to build this. And we are ambitious on it. So it's not as part of this slide deck, but or maybe it is, no, a different one. So our plan is build the existence twin. So that's the here and now in the railway of a 3D view, 2D and 3D view, GIS with 3D technology. And then we're looking at network monitoring, feeding that in, feeding in system information, diagnostics. And then from that, and looking at the data quality side of it, it's predictability, be able to make decisions based on all that information as part of it. So that's about people and capability. And by the way, on the slides up top, these are all tied in with the route-based objectives on people and the different work that happens there as well. So that's key. So to help with that, I've put together a data quality framework, and it's all about treating data as an asset. Because we don't treat it as an asset, and it is an asset. It's one of the most expensive assets we have at the end of the day. And this is the message that I'm getting across to everyone. And actually, it is getting good traction. Data is being spoken about an awful lot, and in the right places on that. But it has to be treated as an asset. That's the first thing. It's understand accountabilities and align it to risk, because there's an awful lot of risk associated with this. But we need to clarify who's accountable for data, what are the requirements, and things like that. And as well as that is understand the skills and behaviors needed for whole life management of asset related data, because that's going to underpin how we make decisions. And I'm not just saying that as a nice thing. We get our data right, people will make decisions based on that data. They're making decisions on it now, only it's not right. So part of the components to this is people, policy, process, safety, and assurance. Assurance is a big thing. So we are doing assurance on the exchange of asset information, and we are speaking to the sponsors Nolan Common about doing that every couple of months. And we're talking about hand back now as well on Nolan Common. And we're going to go around to all the various actors that are going to hand back to Network Rail, and we're going to go and have interviews and discuss with them, what are you doing? What are you handing back? How are you going to hand it back, and get ready for that? And that's our own teams that are there. It's our suppliers. It's High Speed 2 and their suppliers is bringing that together. But that's part of our whole assurance piece on that. But we're even doing assurance on systems that are reliant on asset data. So if you're a system inside the business or outside the business and you're using asset data, well, what are you using it for? Where'd you get it from? Well, how long is it there? Who said you could use it, first of all? Things like that, because we want to root out this whole issue about having uncontrolled information in systems sitting there for 4 years and people making decisions on it. And that's something we're doing at the moment as well on that. We have a few initiatives happening. So it's not all this in the business. I am talking to Microsoft about aligning track data, Ellipse and NM, SNC and Plainline. That's part of our track improvement, and that's getting some good dividends on that actually. What we've done is we've gone around to the business and said, what data do you need from the track community? And they told us. I went, okay, let's talk to Microsoft and let's see how we can get the data from the systems and understand the quality behind that. And that's going to be a game changer on that as well. And if that happens, we'll do that with other disciplines as well. IBM, we're looking at signals with Ellipse and Nest. They don't talk to each other. And guess what? There's no way of understanding the data and each one bringing it together. IBM's point of view is, I can't bring that data together because there's nothing that associates with either sets of data. That's a big issue, that is, because if you want to do what we're doing and bring in data and information together, make decisions, if they can't talk to each other and they can't understand that is a signal base and you maintain a signal base and that's a signal head and ellipse, that's a big problem, massive problem. And then we're working with University of South Wales in looking at LiDAR, looking at creating survey data from LiDAR. And that's one of the key things behind that. Some of the feedback is people can't use point cloud or they don't want to use point cloud or the accuracy might be there. But if we look at bringing in line speeds on top of that, that'd be fair enough. And then 3D tunnel for 7-tunnel disaster recovery, we're working with them on that as well, which is cool. So this is for someone else, this slide, but if you don't improve data quality, nothing's going to be possible if you show them. Simple as that. Might as well go home genuinely, and that's what I'm saying to people. We won't get insights. We won't get insights. We haven't got governance. We need to get our governance sorted out, and so we trust the information that's there. Understand the digital data requirements. And I mentioned it earlier on, but I'm going to rehash. I'm not going to rewrite anything for CP7. That's all staying as it is. But I'm actually saying from a digital point of view, this a kind of a dictionary to explain what the different parts are that we need as part of that. And then we need to invest in people, and that's across the board as well. And data literacy. If we get people, if we're interviewing people, let's understand if they are have they got digital literacy in there. If they haven't, when they're going to come in, they're going to use these systems. They understand how this works as part of that. So this was the asked people. This is transforming work. Are they on board? And it was a thumbs up. And we need to digitally involved. Data quality is key. We are working on a region data lake to bring this together. And the key thing was people behind that as well. And that's it. That's what we're at. That's what we're doing.
Thanks, John. Yeah, really interesting. I'm old enough to remember when we used to get a contract, do some design. We'd go out and do a manual survey.
Right.
We'd then produce our drawings as PDFs and maybe a CAD model if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And then we would give it to you as an overlay to the existing drawings, and you would just have overlays on overlays on overlays on overlays. It's just an absolute, I think, for both sides.
Yeah.
People working on design and obviously asset management, a total nightmare.
Yeah.
So yeah, really pleased to see it's heading in the
We're getting there.
direction.
We're getting there. That's the key thing.
Yeah. We've got a couple of questions online. I'll take any questions in the room first. Do you want to, Andy?
From what you've described, it sounds like it's going to cost an arm and a leg. Have you got enough money to do all this?
So the first thing is it was the skills. It was employing digital skill people with the skills to do it. So the geospatial platform and the 3D environment is in-house network of people doing that, and they're doing signal sighting and they're doing other things that offset that in the business. So there's a policy in network rail, a new policy standard coming out is geospatial, and our need to meet that was let's employ geospatial people who can work with that. And work and end up and it was mainly about asset information and understand where the assets were. And that's the first thing we tried to do. But then we thought, well, hang on, why don't we try and visualize all the assets and geospatially? And what about added value and all that? So it's not costing that much. I think what's going to happen is, where cost might come in the future is they talk about minimal viable product doesn't deliver this. So if you're working on a project and it's MVP and they want a couple of drawings, if it's not geospatial, it needs to be geospatial. If it's a large piece of infrastructure being installed, it needs to be in 3D. Simple as that. So there may be costs associated with that, but I'm hoping that most people work in that world anyway. I think they do. I think we get those deliverables in, and people under the transition from before, but the project requirements are. What grid are you working on? What design is it geospatial? So that's already in place. So from a cost perspective, it's not too bad. Yeah.
All right.
I'm an OLE designer because when we deliver all the designs, we are doing a 3D model. I think it will fit perfectly in the. But I believe somebody asked a similar question. It's like, how do you manage the level of the details? Because I'll give you an example. When we do the 3D, all the major steel work, of course, we're definitely going to model it. There's no problem. But like some small stuff like a jumper, it is important for the maintenance to have a look. But majorly, we don't model that in the 3D meter. How is it like there are requirements written down for?
Well, so I'm going to speak for as well as Western. So you're probably working on other places for that. So we talk about level of detail that's needed, and we've had that conversation. If you're putting in surfaces and shapes, say for a fencing, that's fine. If you're doing overhead line, it's the level of detail and detail design that's there, but the level of detail needed for clash detection for OLE is predominantly clash avoidance, and it's signals, it's bridges, things like that as well. So that's a conversation for the new project to run about the level of detail that's needed. Part of what we're doing is we've got all the models from Paddington to Cardiff. And they're split up, that's fair enough. But they were delivered as they were delivered, if you know what I mean. The 3D design is in there, small par steel, goosenecks. There's no problem with that. So we're not changing any of that because we change produce integrity. And I think Part of us moving to the digital world of gaming engine is that allows that information to be visible an awful lot easier and not what's the anxiety of the circle going on the screen whereas the mod has disappeared. So technology's moved on to kind of prevent that. As well as that, the design tools you use. So Network Grid is a DGN format that we specify that allows for high capacity models, whereas some designs don't really allow for that and has that kind of crash factor. And anyway, on your project, if you deliver it and you have BIM people on the project or it's crashing as part of what you're doing, you know it's probably too low of detail as well. Okay.
I've got a question. For instance, in Atkins Reality, we have an in-house overhead line design tool called Polcat. Other design houses have their own tools, and our tool is based on a database. So all of our OLE assets that we're designing with are in a database, and that raises the question of is the supply chain, how much of this is the supply chain going to have access to this? And is this going to be some kind of data exchange format in future to allow it to go both ways? Because it needs to go both ways.
Yeah. Oh, of course. So the key thing is, so supply chain access, yes. Not now. It's not even out in Network Grid yet. We have a few people in different delivery units looking at it. But the plan is that's externally facing. And the requirements, I guess, would be how to deliver the information into it. Regarding Polcat and the intelligence behind that, has to be a conversation about the exchange of asset information and how it's being transferred over, because there's different ways to view things. So if it's database driven, does it embed the information on the model, or if it doesn't, is it separate? And then as part of the exchange of asset information, you're going to be providing that tabulated minimum asset data requirements as part of that. I think the work needs to be done is how we try to do two of them together, because what we're doing at Severn and the way we're going with these digital delivery requirements is we need intelligence on those models so people can understand what they are, clicking on them rather than going and looking at a lot of drawings, which you'll be able to access anyway, but the more you can see, the better it is. So there's definitely, so even a few weeks ago I had a safety meeting with some of our contractors. Some of those guys have reached out and said, we have all these information in our systems. We want you to see it in here, but also we want access. And it's that kind of relationship that kind of helps with that.
We've got a few questions online. Got one from Mike, and I know Mike, you think that John's probably already answered it, but I think it's worth asking the question anyway. Mike Burke, do you want to come off mute and just ask your question?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Mike, if you can hear us, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
I can't hear him.
IT issue my end. Yeah, I was just kind of wondering where's the limit, because there's some tipping point at some point where you can do everything, but it's not adding the same value as it did at the start. So your slide at the start said 2-to-1 ratio or whatever, but that's because the level of data is quite poor. But in the future, when the data is quite good, to get it to excellent might not be worth the same effort. Where do you think is the stopping point? But I think you've shown slides there of where it can be used for construction and where it can be used for all supply chain to use. So I think you've kind of shown where you think it's going to go for now.
Yeah, I think we have to get the data right. Regardless of what happens, you can't have data that's wrong, or you can't have gaps in the data. We're doing an injustice to anything that we do. So what's good at the moment is project information is coming in, and that's always excellent. And that's feeding that kind of a bathtub. And then the bathtub starts filling up with good data, and the whole life cycle happens then as part of that. But if we don't have, from a data point of view, if the data is not right, we can't make decisions on it. And if someone's gone out and they maintain the railway, and if they don't put in that railway was maintained every 6 months like it's supposed to be, then the business feels that was never maintained. So why do you need 5 people maintaining that part of the network? It's things like that, and that's the message we're trying to say. The data feeds the maintenance and all the information, all the work associated with that. And if it's not accurate, even like, as an example, like Age of Rail, we've had a few issues the last year where rails cracked and broke because a segment was like really old, and it wasn't understood that segment was really old, and everything else is updated. So if we don't understand the age of rail, we have a big issue, because then we can't do preventative maintenance and replace that rail, and then the trains stop, and then everyone gets in trouble over it, and then all the fines come in as part of that. And worst case scenario, people get hurt as well. Does that answer your question, Mike?
Yeah, I think it does.
Good man.
Thanks,
Nice
Mike.
accent you have.
Right, we've got a question from John Neal. John, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Yeah, hi, John. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Good, thank you. So my question was around what would you say are the top sort of need to do items for the design and construction supply chains to better support Network Rail in the development of the systems that you've demonstrated? What can we do better? What can we do sooner? So in that, I mean, you've obviously demonstrated some new platforms and processes that you've developed within Network Rail. Is there anything that you prefer to get from the supply chain sooner, or in a different format, that kind of thing? Obviously taking into consideration sort of cost benefit in terms of level of effort that Mike mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's a good question. We are lucky that in our environment that we did an awful lot of work over the last few years on a common data environment for project information. So what I guess as part of that is understanding what the needs are for that. So understanding the requirements, understanding about design, understanding about the deliverables, the documents, the Form 1s, the Form 2s, the Form ABCs, understanding that they need to be placed where they're placed in the system where they should be, but also fill in the attributes as part of it, because that's something that's missing, and that's something that we're going to do as part of our assurance, is go through, because we can't report on the status of how many DRNs or how many designs are at a certain state holistically across the patch if the attributes aren't filled in. So there's a good bit of work to be done on that, I guess, but not everyone's the same. Regarding formats, I'm already looking towards CPA and interoperability and open formats, and I'm thinking, and from a less cost point of view, is allowing people to design in the tools and the formats that they choose once we can visualize it. So that's kind of a going back away from having a very rigid workflow and a very rigid way of working, which works for enhancements. That's fantastic. Major enhancements works that way, but for your minor renewals or your general renewals, asking, and there's an awful lot of asking there with especially with our CP7 frameworks, in putting information and data in. I'm leaning towards having an environment where you can drag and drop PDF in, and it reads the attributes, and it reads the version, and it reads everything, and then it's all available to be reported on. That stops people. That means we don't need to worry about putting attributes and things like that. So I guess it's evolving, but currently, at least put information in, give added value with the attribution that's in there, and then let's work together on moving forward in the future and looking at leaner way of working, more intuitive way of working, and then I am going to bring the AI part into it. And some of the way of what we're looking at is you will be able to see how many designs are still with, how many designs are at AFC, who's not done this, who's done this, what's not being produced, what's being delivered, and that's generative AI, because the data and the information behind it is of a good value. You can make those decisions then. Does that make sense, John?
It does, yeah. Thanks, John.
Okay. Got a question from Simon Bjork. Simon, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, John. My question, I think you've probably answered in part anyway, but do you think we can do more to allow access to the data outside of Network Rail? And then allied to that, do we need a framework for managing liability and risk? The last thing we want to do is keep commissioning new survey over and over again with different parties, because it adds cost. And I guess depending on the data, if it's an embankment, you might have a certain risk profile when compared to OLE heights and staggers. Yeah.
I guess with that, like particularly the survey part of it, deliver a survey report with a survey, and it's what we've had in our requirements. I don't know what we need. That's why we need to do a bit of reporting on it, see how effective it is. But if a designer needs a survey, write a technical work scope. It's something that we did in electrification. I kind of brought that still in. It's still in there. So write a technical work scope of what that survey is for and what you need it for, and then having a data environment where you can search for surveys, or having a geospatial solution which can identify them. That helps that as well. But the survey report that's produced and the witness diagrams and everything will allow people to use that information. So Royal surveys were produced 5-6 years ago. That's still being used now. We've got surveys of tunnels that are being multi-use as well. And I understand the risk associated with it, but if you provide the right information and let people understand how it was produced, how old it is, what it captures, they mitigate that risk then as part of it. But that goes back to what can be happen better is let's put those surveys in the system. Let's put all the information about that, how they were delivered, and then push them to shared and have them signed off, and then the trust comes in as part of that. One of the things just on that as well is I'm trying to align all the surveys. It's something that I try to do at Christmas and get a chance yet. But let's have a survey framework in our environment that you put all your surveys in there, and then people can share them. If you have the right information, people can share them, because if it's very deep down in the weeds in the underground, somewhere that we don't like talking about, no one's going to find that. Things like that. Okay, Simon?
Yeah, thanks a lot, John.
Good man.
Thanks, Simon. Any more questions in the room?
I'll ask this quickly. It might be a question you can't answer, John. I imagine it is. You talk about giving access to the supply chain outside of Network Rail. You've got an idea of timescales?
What? We haven't given access to inside Network Rail yet, so we're in development mode. So it's going to be about 6 months, but it's going to be outward facing, and any systems we have to back it up, it's going to be outward facing. I'll give you, so for example, is the ecological database that has to be outward facing, and the apps are going to be outward facing. So you guys and your teams can go out and use the applications that are provided to feed into the database. So that's a requirement from the outset. So GIS, not a problem, because it's an outward facing aspect. GRail 3.5D, we need to work on how that's going to look. Our challenge at the moment is getting into business, and then once it's into business, then we can work on that. And Ollie's working on some online solutions as well that might enable it.
It's a virtuous circle. You've got to make it accessible to the
That's right.
supply chain, because at the moment, supply chain gets all we get is pain of doing the BIM stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's pain for us. But if we start to see, oh, hang on, this is good. We're feeding the machine.
Yeah, that's right.
The machines you've used to us, then we'll stay.
Yeah.
You know, it will be.
And
Right.
even looking at what they want to do on Eastern Delivery Unit, you can see that straight away. They're using this information for a large variety of what they want to do, and that's just starting off on this. It's going to get legs and move forward, things like that. So third-party access, no problem, but it'll be the time and no time to go.
And will it just arrive one day, or will there be a gradual rollout? You'll maybe go and speak to some champions within certain organisations and say, can you try and test this for me? Can you try and break it?
No, before even it's rolled out, we're going to do that. So we need to identify champions, like you said, in different organisations to test it and validate it, because there's no point in rolling it out if you haven't got the feedback from a diverse lot of people. So that's key towards what we're trying to do, and we will be doing that. When we get to that stage, we get comms out and we talk to people, and we'll arrange a day like this maybe, and we'll all come in and look at it. Yeah.
To what extent, John, are you talking to your counterparts in the other regions? Because the one thing that would worry anybody in the supply chain is having different standards to meet on different regions.
Yeah.
Trying to face so many ways at once.
Yeah. So people know what we're doing, and that's true, because there's different technical forums that we describe what we're doing, things like that. I'm driven in what I do. I've always been driven like that, to do what I can, do and make a difference, right? And that's other people in other regions. They have people in my role and in roles I was in to do that as well. And if they have their drive, then happy days. If they don't, I can't influence that. So I can only talk about Wales and Western and making sure we're the best what we're doing in this and in BIM and in everything else that we're doing. That's all I can say. I can't influence anyone else.
Right. Any more?
One more.
Go
Just on that subject,
Be the best.
Wales and Western. What about TFW?
We have a sharing forum, so we're starting to have conversations with TFW. We set up something about 6 months ago. It didn't really get traction, so I wrote a terms of reference about sharing an industry data forum. I'm calling it. So TFW and GWR and people like that, and getting them together to talk about sharing information and data. I think in Wales there is a separate entity that Network Rail is talking about sharing data. I've brought data, so it goes back to that particular stuff we were talking about.
Yeah.
I acted on that, and I went in and said, we talk about data sharing and information across both entities, because if you were doing work for TFW, we want, vice versa, you're doing stuff for us that they want as well. So I know the example you're talking about. Good stuff.
There's no more. Then just remains for us to thank John in the usual way. See you all next month, 4 weeks today, in Acon in the evening. Not here in the lunchtime. Okay.